テゴリー1平塚ラスカ店。
Evacuations continue amid fears of ethnic war in Burundi. 3 killed in another Palestinian-Israeli shooting. President Clinton pushes for jobs and higher wages. The Japanese are changing to keep their U.S. vehicle market share. And the ice cap is threatened.
The World Today. This program is brought to you by the following sponsors.
Good evening and welcome to The World Today.
Frank and I have international and national news, including sports and features for Thursday, March the 30th.
We'll begin tonight again with the Burundi story. The UN Security Council has deplored the killings and extremism in Burundi, saying the situation threatens the entire region in Africa. There's alarm that Burundi could go the way of its neighbor Rwanda. Those who can are getting out of the country.
It was reminiscent of the turmoil in neighboring Rwanda. The people of Burundi's capital wanted to be somewhere else, somewhere safer. Once again, the fear was caused by ethnic violence. Despite the presence of troops on the streets, Tutsi gangs have gone on the rampage against rival Hutus. The arson and the shootings left at least 200 Burundians dead. Ethnic fighting has challenged democracy in Burundi for 18 months. Now the refugees are seeking shelter in countries where they are not always guaranteed a welcome. Many are bound for Zaire, which is still burdened by large numbers of refugees from Rwanda. Aid workers are warning that existing food supplies are all that's available. There are no fresh shipments in the pipelines. Hundreds of non-essential foreigners were being evacuated from Bujumbura, Burundi's capital, as embassies took advantage of a lull in the fighting. They included the family of the American ambassador, Robert Kruger.
In the past couple of weeks, we've been concerned because the government has not shown an ability, even in Bujumbura, the capital, really to bring control and order into what is happening here. And when there are clampdowns, it is very important to our country that it not be simply a suppression of violence with a new introduction of violence by security forces themselves.
So far, Americans have not been the target of violence, but that could change this afternoon or tomorrow. So those of us with children and those of us who are spouses are being prudent, I think, in leaving now.
On the border between Eritrea and Ethiopia, 9 Italian tourists have been kidnapped. No details available immediately.
U.S. Secretary of State Warren Christopher has intervened in negotiations between Israel and Syria. He's trying to get these sluggish talks moving toward understanding on future security arrangements in the Golan Heights. In the Palestinian-ruled Gaza Strip, there was another clash involving Israeli policemen.
Accident or not, the incident left 3 more dead on the Gaza, a Palestinian truck driver and 2 Israeli policemen. Israeli troops shot and killed the Palestinian after his truck crashed into a convoy of Israeli vehicles escorting Jewish settlers. The police officers died in the crash. 2 other officers were seriously wounded. Israel initially said the Palestinian opened fire on the Israelis, but later the army said the driver had aimed a toy pistol at the convoy. Palestinian officials said the collision was an accident. They said that the truck either had brake troubles or got a flat tire. They say Israel overreacted, another needless killing. Israeli officials were in no doubt that the attack was premeditated.
Unfortunately, the Palestinian Authority still allows those people to drive around or walk around with guns unchecked and uncontrolled.
The timing of the incident couldn't have been worse for Gaza autonomy talks, which have been making progress.
In Bosnia, a Dutch UN soldier was killed when a mortar bomb or artillery round hit a UN post near an area of recent heavy fighting in the north. The Serbs kept up a blockade of food deliveries to Sarajevo as the United Nations warned that the Serbs and their Muslim-led foes appear ready to plunge the country into all-out war. It is the United Nations airlift of food that is vital to the survival of Bosnia's capital, Sarajevo.
What I think is important also is the psychological significance of the airlift for the people of Sarajevo. It is some sort of a linking element, a bridge between Sarajevo and the outside world.
Under growing international fire for its 10-day-old push against rebel Kurds in Iraq, Turkey seems set to launch a diplomatic initiative to press its view on the matter. Turkey's foreign minister will visit the U.S., Germany, and France. Meanwhile, there's concern and anger over the fate of civilians in northern Iraq. It's feared the 35,000 Turkish troops will stay in Iraq for a long time. 2 Americans jailed for entering Iraq illegally told CNN they were inside the UN-marked territory when they were captured by Iraq. An Iraqi official says the men cannot be given clemency because it would create a lot of complications. The U.S. warns Iraq will gain nothing by continuing to hold the men.
6 Thai fishermen were jailed in Malaysia when they failed to pay fines for poaching in Malaysian waters. But the big fishing dispute remains that between Canada and the European Union. Canada says progress is being made, but the Union continues to take a strong stand publicly over Canada's seizure of a Spanish fishing boat and net.
The way the nets have been recovered was illegal, so any inspection would have been considered as an act of accepting the illegality of the action done by the Canadians.
It took hours, more than 200 firefighters, 40 trucks, and 2 fireboats to control a blaze at New York's Fulton Fish Market. The market is one of the oldest and largest wholesale food markets in the U.S., covering several blocks along the East River. Scientists are reporting the danger to life in Antarctica could be a sign of a coming calamity for all mankind.
The locals say bring another chilly day in the Antarctic. But Argentine scientists warn that the very sea which supports the animals on King George Island is putting the Antarctic's future at risk. Scientists say they found a crack 40 miles long in the northernmost part of the Larsen ice shelf, caused by the gradual warming of the surrounding seas. The shelves help insulate the continental ice cap from warmer weather. Whilst few scientists believe that the ice cap could disappear, any substantial melting would cause a catastrophe. Antarctica's ice cap contains 70% of the world's water. If it all melted, sea levels would rise by up to 100 yards, enough to flood much of the Earth. American scientists have predicted in the 1970s that the melting of the Antarctic's ice shelf would be a clear sign of global warming. The latest findings seem to confirm it.
U.S. President Clinton was in Atlanta. He's pushing for job growth and higher wages. Jim Angle reports.
After touting recent economic gains, President Clinton acknowledged there are still some problems.
Over half the American people, in spite of this recovery, are working longer work weeks for the same or lower wages than they were making 15 years ago.
But today's discussion was aimed less at changing policies than gathering support for those the administration already embraces.
You are to be congratulated, Mr. President, for your proposal to increase the minimum wage.
Another panelist lamented Republican budget cuts, which would eliminate 1,500 summer jobs in Atlanta.
What do we believe that those 1,500 young people will be doing if we do not provide them with employment?
The man pushing those cuts in Washington hoped the summit might push the president in a different direction.
In fact, he might decide he'd like to favor our tax cuts next week after he talks to enough entrepreneurs.
No one here was talking about that, though there were some muffled complaints, one comparing this weekend's basketball finals to government regulation.
And what's going to happen Saturday night is the referee's going to throw that ball up and get the hell out of the way. And in some respects, that's what government needs to do.
The main purpose of this summit was not to generate new initiatives, but rather to build political support for the president's economic policies, support he will need in coming battles with the Republican Congress.
The American South has moved away from relying on agriculture, and this has contributed to the lower world production of cotton. Now demand and prices for cotton are rising.
The farmlands along the southeast U.S. have been overflowing with cotton. The final harvest is turning out to be the second best in history. But even that can't satisfy world demand. Crop disease in Pakistan and India, a drought in Australia, and harvesting problems in China have combined to seriously cut supplies worldwide, driving up prices 40% to $1.14 a pound. The first time cotton had sold for more than $1 in the 120 years it has been traded. As a result, U.S. exports of raw cotton rose nearly 30% to 10 million pounds this year. That left a small supply of expensive cotton for U.S. clothing mills, which could no longer afford to pay the price.
The higher prices have the desired effect of rationing demand.
The Miami area is going to be getting some more jobs thanks to President Clinton. In Tallahassee, he announced that South Dade County has been selected as the new site for the U.S. Southern Command Headquarters. That's the military organization responsible for Central and Latin America, or Central and South America. Haitian President Jean-Bertrand Aristide says he feels Haiti is secure enough for the transfer of peacekeeping duties to a UN-led force. He used the assassination of a prominent supporter of the former military regime to reiterate his call for stronger efforts to disarm criminals. The United States warned the Haitian government last week that Ariel de Rocha-Bertin was the target of a plot, but the Pentagon says she declined state protection when she was informed of the threat to her life. Washington condemned the slaying and sent a team of FBI agents to help catch the killers, responding to an Aristide request. The murder came 3 days before the U.S.-led forces are to hand over Haiti's security to a 6,900-member UN peacekeeping force. U.S. President Clinton and UN Secretary General Boutros Boutros-Ghali will be in Haiti to witness that transfer. The White House says President Clinton is pleased the House has rejected a constitutional amendment that would have placed term limits on lawmakers. A spokesman said Clinton believes voters can best decide if their elected officials should be sent back to Washington. Speaker Newt Gingrich vows the House hasn't heard the last of this measure. He rejects the suggestion the defeat marks an unraveling of the GOP's contract with America. Democrat Senate veteran Howell Heflin thinks time has come for him to go. He's 73 in his third term and won't run for re-election. Howell Heflin wants to return to his Alabama home. Prosecutors are suggesting O.J. Simpson could have dumped evidence of murder before his late-night flight to Chicago last June. They questioned a limo driver and an airport skycap about the number of bags Simpson carried and the location of an airport trash can. An American Airlines skycap said Simpson checked fewer bags than the limo driver says were unloaded at the airport. Doctors say a 5-year-old Los Angeles boy infected with the AIDS virus at birth apparently has fought off the virus and is now free of HIV. This is said to be the first documented case of someone casting off all signs of AIDS infection. And a new U.S. study says a common pain reliever, ibuprofen, may help children with cystic fibrosis. High doses slowed lung deterioration by 90% in a 4-year study of children. In Jacksonville, Florida, a mother has been sentenced to 12 years in prison after pleading guilty to manslaughter. Her 7-month-old son died when she left him locked in a car in 73-degree temperatures while she worked at a fast food restaurant. China's oldest man has died of hepatitis. Beijing says he was 147. He credited his long life to hard work, never drinking or smoking, and remaining a bachelor. That's the international scene. National news coming up. Stay tuned.
弱い地盤を知り抜いた。例えば橋を架けながら風と地震に強くなる。私たちは難問に育てられた建設会社です。解決する力、土曜建設。
でもいいけどさ、ちょっとね。あなた、そろそろなんとかしないとね。そろそろね。
こちら TVK ハウジングプラザ横浜。
あなた、そろそろなんとかしないとね。そろそろね。
日本最大100棟 TVK ハウジングプラザ横浜。
あっち、こっち、こっち。あ、こっち。
The nation received another frightening shock as terrorism once again raised its ugly head in Tokyo. Japan's top police officer was shot and seriously wounded by a gunman with a pistol. National Police Agency Commissioner General Takaji Kunimatsu was shot as he was leaving his apartment in Tokyo's Arakawa ward shortly after 8:30 a.m. The masked gunman fired from behind at a range of about 20 meters. He shot once, and after Kunimatsu fell, he fired 3 more times. He fled on a bicycle. He was described as 180 centimeters tall, thin, about 40 years old, and wearing a hat, white mask, and black or dark blue raincoat. At the Nippon Medical College Hospital, doctors said Kunimatsu was conscious when he was brought in, though he had lost a considerable amount of blood. He had been shot 3 times in the abdomen and once in the leg. He was given blood and the bullets were extracted. The attack occurred despite a 24-hour police watch around Kunimatsu's apartment complex. Kunimatsu was accompanied by his secretary and was walking to his car with his driver when he was shot. 57-year-old Kunimatsu commands Japan's prefectural police forces, which are mobilized to search for the widespread facilities of the controversial Oum Shinrikyo religious group. Since last week, the police discovered hundreds of tons of dangerous chemicals in large-scale chemical laboratories. The Tokyo, Yamanashi, Nagano, and other prefectural police are seeking clues leading to the arrest of those responsible for 2 deadly sarin attacks. One killed 7 in Matsumoto City in Nagano Prefecture last year. The other killed 10 on Monday last week on Tokyo's subway trains. Last November, Kunimatsu warned that increasing crimes, especially those involving the use of guns, was threatening the foundation of public order in Japan's traditionally safe and stable society. He directed a nationwide crackdown on gun smuggling and sales. Last year, the police seized a record 2,100 pistols, double that of 1993.
Home Affairs Minister Hiromu Nonaka this morning hurried to the Prime Minister's office to report the Kunimatsu shooting. Nonaka is concurrently chairman of the National Public Safety Commission, which supervises police activities. Later, Nonaka told reporters that he had ordered an all-out search to arrest the gunman. Nonaka said that although no one has claimed responsibility for the attack, it's significant that the shooting came so soon after the deadly gas attack on subway trains. Prime Minister Murayama ordered Nonaka and Chief Cabinet Secretary Kozo Igarashi to take all available steps to arrest the gunman. He also directed them to strengthen police protection of all key people. Chief Cabinet Secretary Igarashi described the shooting as a challenge to the Japanese police and to the rule of order in the nation.
2 television stations, TV Asahi and Nippon TV, received similar phone calls warning of further attacks. The calls were received around 9:50 a.m., 1.5 hours after the Kunimatsu shooting. The man making the call said that unless the Oum religious group investigation was stopped, Inoue and Omori would be hurt. The references were to Tokyo Metropolitan Police Superintendent General Yukihiko Inoue and Cabinet Investigation Officer Director General Yoshio Omori.
In Moscow, a member of the Russian parliament said the Oum religious group had obtained a military handbook on poison gas just before the sarin gas attack on Tokyo subway trains last week. Vitaly Savitsky, chairman of the Duma's Social and Religious Committee, said he received the information from Russian police. He said the manual was found in an apartment of a Russian member of the religious group. Savitsky charged some members of the Russian army and even some of President Boris Yeltsin's government have cooperated with the Aum group.
In tonight's financial news, the U.S. dollar continued to weaken. In Tokyo, it was trading at 88.28 yen, down 0.18 at 5 p.m. today. In New York Wednesday, it sank against major currencies as expectations faded that the German central bank would lower its interest rates. The decision of the Federal Reserve Board to leave short-term U.S. interest rates unchanged also hurt the dollar. The dollar was quoted at 88.39 yen, down 0.51 late Thursday in New York. On the Tokyo Stock Exchange, the boost in future prices raised share prices, but profit-taking in the afternoon reduced the gains. The 225-issue Nikkei average closed at 16,512.22, up 51.49, less than one-half of the 122-point gain at the end of the morning session. Lower House member Yutaka Kondo was sentenced to 18 months in prison and fined 5 million yen for enabling his supporters to evade the payment of 41 million yen in income taxes. The Nagoya District Court found Kondo guilty of falsely increasing the amounts of receipts of political donations by 2 or 3 times. This enabled 16 financial supporters to claim greater exemptions in their tax reports in 1989 and 90. Kondo was elected 3 times from Aichi Prefecture. He was an independent after resigning from the Japan New Party upon his arrest. And a 35-year-old employee of a Tokyo software company today won a damage suit, lost pay for being fired because he was HIV positive.
ドリーミーストリート TVK ハウジングプラザ大船。
トップ EJ カテゴリー1平塚ラスカ店。
The U.S. Major League Baseball season begins on Monday with replacements in uniform. Acting Commissioner Bud Selig will be in New York overnight, where labor talks could resume. The Players Association hopes to have a response to the owner's latest offer. Virginia Tech has won the National Invitation Basketball Tournament title in overtime by 1 point against Marquette, coming on 2 free throws with less than a second left. Penn State beat Canisius by 4 points for third place. In the America's Cup, mighty Mary suffered a serious loss to Young America, while 2 New Zealand boats won their races in the Challenger Series.
Did you ever wonder what the Rolling Stones eat before they go on stage to perform? Well, in tonight's feature report, we head to Australia, where the oldest rock band is getting down under, and we'll also include the Stones' diet.
The last time the Stones played Down Under, a ticket cost an Aussie $5. Today there's no change from a $100 bill. But to Stones fans, it's irrelevant. A trek behind the scenes reveals these demigods of rock have mortal tastes, especially when it comes to food.
He likes shepherd's pie, and he has it every night that he does a show. And then we have Nick and Charlie, who like grilled fish or chicken with rice and steamed vegetables. And they have that on show night.
Sounds very healthy.
And Ronnie is just Ronnie. He just eats what we put out.
But satisfying the Stones has never been easy. It's an issue here, too, backstage. Sound and light technicians have spent more than a month setting up for this one-night stand. The Worldwide Roadshow got underway in August last year. But to this predominantly 40-something crowd, the 50-somethings on stage showed no signs of fatigue. 22 years since they were last here, the world's oldest rock and roll band is still delivering.
For the first time in a long time, the volume of Japanese car sales in the United States is dropping. Why? And what are the Japanese going to do about it? Michael Davey reports.
America's love affair with Japanese cars is far from over, but it's having problems. One of the best-selling cars in the US for the past 5 years has been from Japan, and the top 10 used cars, according to Consumer Reports magazine, are all Japanese. But for the first time in a decade, sales of Japanese cars in America are falling, as much as 24% in some models over the past year. The problem is price. The Japanese yen has gained 33% against the US dollar in 3 years, making Japanese cars very expensive.
What's happened to Japanese cars is that they can't make any money selling. They're losing money selling. That's bad. So why don't they just raise prices? But then they wouldn't have any business. You say, so what? Well, they're in business. And they're not here to go out of business by raising prices that high.
The Japanese are also facing increased competition from European luxury cars, now making a comeback. One reaction has been for Japanese companies to move production of their higher-priced cars to the US. Meanwhile, American car makers are pouncing on the opportunity by improving their line of sport utility vehicles, which is the fastest-growing segment of the market, and taking share from the Japanese luxury cars.
Maybe it's just fashion, or maybe it's just style. You know, maybe they look macho and people want to be macho. Whatever it is, they're buying four-wheel drive vehicles, and it is cutting into the luxury market.
The Japanese strategy is to keep drivers in Japanese cars, even if it means losing money today. They believe that when exchange rates alter, as they invariably do, Americans will resume buying Japanese cars at a faster pace than before. I'm Michael Davey reporting.
I remember watching The World Today more than 20 years ago when John Lewis was the anchor. I joined the program on June 23rd, 1978, and I've been here since, working with a vast array of talented co-reporters, my personal favorite, Hidaki Mami-san. And there have been many qualified personnel, full-time and part-time, in the background, like senior editor Mr. George Somikawa, who all made The World Today the standard that proved such a profound influence on how news has come to be reported in Japan. I'm deeply proud to have been involved in such a noteworthy endeavor. Now, as The World Today comes to an end on TVK, I want to thank all of you for your comments and support. It's been wonderful to know you were watching. Till we meet again, sayonara, sayonara, sayonara.
This program was brought to you by the following sponsors: